bom dia, bom dia. Happy Saturday. Espero que todo bom simang, whatever that means to you. Que todo simang produktibo, simang leuk. Pessoal que celebrate Thanksgiving like I did. Espero que todo nice Thanksgiving. Anto ko bo família gusta whatever you brought to the dinner. Me senti que no matter quanto años nos tinta celebrar Thanksgiving, no sempre to underestimate tempo que the required. Pa cook nos turkey. Anto anyways, but everything's fine. As a hobby douche, anto shout out to Sabrina pa share a really awesome recipe pa brine turkey. I was so happy with that recipe. So yes, ta just sabra awe. So once again, happy weekend. Mis espero weekend ko misa bong. Anto falta menos kung si mang pa Eleccion. Anto menos saliboso pero ami don't think anxious. Mito proprio pasa sobra minjis quer me pasa. But at the same time, me quero que se manque também to hobby crucial, me escucha hobby and ainda on the fence over the choices nang. So we will be with those very beautiful girlies who are here with me. Ko todo hobby activo election season aqui, cycle aqui. Eigenlijk como voters anto. Yes, just me balaga na introducing namin, so we'll get into this conversation. Pero mag gumising, thank you to my awesome sponsors for allowing me to talk about whatever I want to talk about. So thank you to Toto, to La Roche-Posay, and to Gain. I appreciate you so much. Nasa live, riba Facebook, YouTube, the Sensory Carolina, Cool FM, riba Cool FM's website. Sibo, no por catch the whole episode at once. Do not worry, but walk it back onto Bobo Scuchela, riba Jamars, riba Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever favorite platform you have. No sabe code switch a lot today. Me just gotta be supposed to say. No sabe papaya inglês, no sabe papaya papiamento. No sabe papaya conversacion flow. Y me espero que ting some young ears listening. Por tanto, não estou struggling com first vote. Episode aqui tá baboso. So se você conhece gente ko da struggling ko sa first vote of porta sa kita pero maybe ako ta echt interesado in politica wanneer me guest aan die awe lagan sa your episode aqui and hopefully sa kita ba yun. So without further ado mi balaga mi beautiful guest ang introducing ng mes anto me ta espera ng karavang notas desconocidas seguramente ko boso todo ting un tiki interesse in politica acaba. Pero yes, Lucienne, me comienza ko tell us who you are and why you're here today.
Yes, mi nome è Lucienne Lacle y mi cargo representing the tech industry again. The same as Face the Future.
¿Cuál distrito?
Pero, so mi nome è Lucienne Lacle y mi un tech consultant. Of course, always represented the tech industry. Kikong tech consultant actually ku si kompanya ng select un application mito yun ng implemented or sinang kaya build un application over meeting developers that we can build applications as well. Anto si bati un sistema implementa kaba pero bakar verbetere, then I'm your go. Then I just configure it, improve your processes and those type of things. So that's just the scratch of the surface of what I do.
Very interesting. Yes, and who you are. Yes, very interesting. But so nang ko noting Luciana ira ba LinkedIn. Luciana hope leuk ira ba LinkedIn.
Thank you.
I should follow you. I should use LinkedIn more.
Actually, you should.
Is that something that's like relevant on Aruba?
Yeah, like
I think more and more.
See, like everyone I've met in the tech industry, like Adi, he's one of the team members of Weparuba, that's our tech community. We've met through LinkedIn, and almost everyone we meet through LinkedIn. Like I have so many LinkedIn people, like friends. So yeah, it does work.
I should look into that.
Yeah.
Yes. So as we do this nice segue, Giulia, tell us who you are and why you're here today.
Mi nome è Giulia Brezovar. A me está representando industria de mi mes. No industry in particular. Maybe the younger generation. No, pero mi trapo un retail company, tea company, nos ting vários tiendas na Aruba, Tradewinds, Eva Boutique, e mi international buyer. De studie mercancia bonita, but eu tenho tienda nang escorrer junto com mi boss. So, sí, I love it. Following trends, spending other people's money, so I don't have to spend my own.
Love it, here for it, yes. Okay, so no sabi sa nakomensamento ko this episode might be interesting for first-time voters, which would be like you, right? So I guess that is the industry you could represent today, Giulia. But also voters who in the past were not as interested in politics and decided now that they are. So I'm just gonna let any of you jump in, right? We also received some questions, so I will go over some of them as we go through the conversation, but that would be one of them, right? Why are you interested in politics now? And not just interested as in following, right? Most of us who are interested make sure to follow certain news, certain shows, or certain politicians, read programs, etc. But you decided to literally actively participate in the process of informing others. Why? And whoever wants to go first.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've been back on Aruba. I went abroad to study. I came back 3.5 years ago. E durante temporada de verdade me notata interessada in politics. Para mim, todo is a part of life. Aqui, portanto, todo um article online, pero for the rest, e me notariba Facebook tampoco. Dus dingen sentido, I felt a little bit out of touch. I was just in my own bubble. E ora governo cai, obviously, é a vida mais relevante. E vooral ora me ora puntra para participar em show Face the Future. Me thought, okay, me by dingen koski. I think it's good for myself. I need a little bit of a push to learn more about different partidos now. What do they stand for and represent? E vooral politicians lang who I was going to be speaking with. Dus nang saída de push que me thought mister, pasar a me tô me quero bom preparar. Dus a mim dat baita sinta across een politician e not me oportunidade para me research e pontra specifieke vragen que posa me quero não contestar of me tá penso que outro gente lo quer para não contestar. Dus is zij para mim echt, me has een deep dive e yeah, honestly I got very excited and involved. I have no regrets. It was a good move for me.
And I think people felt it too because you said, being well researched, and I think that if we look at most of the interviews with politicians, they tend to be, they just ask a question and let them kind of talk, and it's very hard to keep up. It's very hard to know everything about everything. There is information that is readily out there. There's information that isn't. So if you happen to know something, like I'll be watching episodes and I'll be like, I happen to know about that topic, and therefore, I wish there was a follow-up question. But if you don't know, you don't know. But I like that it showed that you were well prepared and that you were also able to challenge due to that preparedness, right? Due to the fact that you knew what to expect when you asked that question, right? You already had a framework. So anytime that they kind of stepped out of it, you were like, no. But my question was,
You did not answer the question.
And I think that is what is going in a lot of people's minds when they watch, interviews or they watch videos. And what I think a lot of people wish they could do, even if they had the opportunity to be speaking to someone directly. So culturally, I think that the Aruban culture, and everybody who listens to Sister Carolina knows that I do not subscribe, not because I don't want to subscribe, but because my parents are not Aruban. So culturally, there are some differences, but we tend to see them as authoritative figures, and there's a high power distance, and we just keep them there, and you don't question too much, even though you know that they might not be answering the question or might not be telling the truth.
They feel a bit untouchable, and so I think we're in a position where we feel like, oh, they said something, take it as como ley. I also think their platforms, a lot of times they've gone on debates, so like you said, they just keep talking and talking, and they don't get challenged in that regard. And I think with interviews, it's especially important that you have to think of it as a conversation. So you both have things como bedragen bij na combersacion, and if you do your research, you can have that back and forth a lot better than just accepting what they say and not try to challenge that.
I like that. So Lucienne, tell us about your experience and why you decided to be so involved this time.
Yeah, so this is my second time voting, but the first time I was 18 years old, so I didn't do any research on anyone. I just basically followed my parents, which I think a lot of people do. So I just follow my parents, which is also completely fine if you want to do that. But this time around, I decided to do a little bit more research. And again, the same as Giulia, when the government fell, I was like, ooh, okay, so it is something serious. Before I was like, la la la, chill, going through life. I didn't really care. Pero but now when it fell, I felt like, oh, okay, so I do have to do more research into it, and my vote indeed does count. And especially why politics for me is very important is because I translate it to corporate politics, and corporate politics and like normal politics for me is I take it as the same thing. It's just you're playing a game of chess, and you just have to be very strategic. And that's the perspective I wanted to get to know of the politicians more. Can they be strategic within their game, and especially on the field of technology? Because I hear a lot of politicians are campaigning about digitalization or technology. We're going to automate this, we're going to automate that, we're going to create this type of environment. And I'm like, okay, I want to see if you can really walk the talk. So that's why I went on the show, and that's why I was interested to speak more about the politicians, to see what are their actual knowledge with regards to technology. And also, of course, we have a tech community on the island, and we want to increase awareness of everyone that has tech skills on the island as well. So I went there first. That's why Giulia was laughing at me, saying every time I started the show, I introduced myself as I'm representing the tech industry, because I want all of us to thrive within this industry on Aruba, and then link it with the politics to see, if they have knowledge. And I don't know, just
I think it's good that you kept saying that, because
Yeah.
it showed consistency. Like, this is a topic that's important to you,
Yeah.
and this is the topic that you wanted answers on. And I
Same.
think specifically with the episode of Joffrey Waver, Minister de Economia, like
Yeah.
I felt like you're like, okay, this is someone who can actually answer these questions, because
Yeah.
this is his expertise, and you didn't back
Exactly.
down. I really liked you in that episode.
yeah. No, for the Joffrey episode, he I don't know if he specializes a lot in fintech, but I heard and I read about him with regards to fintech. So fintech is, of course, my field. Like, technology is such a big industry, and some people say it's an enabler, and yes, I do agree it's an enabler. So you can have technology in everything, but my specialization is fintech, and his as well. So that's why I could have, like,
Right.
like, come on, like, show me what you got, like, hey.
But I think it's, something that you just mentioned, Lucienne. During election period, people pick up on buzzwords.
See, and that's
So-
and that's why like I want
Yeah.
especially for technology, I don't want people to misuse the word, because
Yeah.
once you start misusing the word technology or digitalization or automation, then it will just be like like a thing on the wall.
Yeah.
You're not going to
Yeah.
hear it anymore.
It's
Yeah.
also so broad. What do you mean?
Exactly. What do you mean? So I have a friend, shout out to Tyson, and he made a bingo card for one of the debates. And so basically the way that the bingo worked is you fill in words that you think might come up during the debate. And it was so funny because I also asked like my Instagram followers, like, help me fill in a bingo card. So I had like my own bingo card and I asked them to fill it in. It was very interesting because the Instagram card was the first one to fill out. And that's what we focus on, right? Those buzzwords, and I don't want to say that these things are not relevant, but things that we have been hearing a lot during this election period, right? A lot of talk about knowledge economy, about orange economy, about adulto mayor,
The brain drain.
Yeah.
Brain also as well.
And I'm like, do we have brain drain? I know so many smart people around me. Like, I don't know if that's a problem, right? But I don't know because I don't have the data to really feel like, is this truly a problem or not? Or are we just valuing people outside of Aruba more than the people that are here, which I
Yeah.
feel like happens a lot of time. So I think that was very interesting because you can ask somebody about one of these buzzy words, who are trending, words that are trending during this election season or whatever, and they might say, yeah, we're all in for that. But if you really know about the topic, then you're able to challenge it, right? Like,
exactly.
like, how serious are you really
Yes.
about this particular thing, right? And you kind of show that you did
Yeah.
with your questions about technology, and also for people outside of that bubble, because by all means, I'm a healthcare girly, but you mentioned something about the schools. I don't remember which episode it was specifically right now, but
I think Herling was education.
yeah,
I
okay.
think so.
And it was about like using technology and education, and innovation, and using those words interchangeably, and you said like using technology at school does not equal innovation.
No, exactly. Pero, like, so I actually want to write a LinkedIn post about that because what I said within that specific episode is that I would wish that companies would not focus, like private and public sector would not focus their funds a lot on the hardware technology rather than just focus on the curriculum or create some type of project to revamp the curriculum and embed more technology within it. However, I don't want to take it fully back, but I do want to take it a little bit back because still it is very, very important,
Of course.
for hardware technology to be implemented within the educational system. And the reason I find it very important is I went to a EduTech, so the Futura EduTech event, I think today were Saturday, I think
It is Saturday,
Thursday.
yes.
Thursday, yeah, I'm like so confused, I'm so busy.
It's fine.
But on Thursday, I went to the EduTech event and then I saw the teachers presenting, the funding that they received from Futura, and I was like, wow, I almost cried, and that's what changed my perspective. So hardware technology is important, but we have to create a balance between implementing
Yes.
hardware technology and as well modifying the curriculum to embed more technology courses within it, even like at a young age.
And I fully agree. Like when you said that, I feel like I immediately understood what you were saying, and
Yeah.
it's not that you were
Okay,
saying that
good,
we don't
okay.
need, but other
Yeah.
people might, understand. So it's good that
Exactly.
you feel that
Yeah.
you need to explain. But for me, it was like, yes, we do need all of the super nice
Beautiful,
stuff, but the people who are teaching need to know how to use them within the
To its
classroom.
fullest capacity as well.
Yes, and encourage the use of it, right? And like you can have a bunch of, I'm just gonna say something, right? A bunch of like smart boards and I don't know, laptops. And if the only thing that you're doing on it is plugging in the smart board with like a laptop to give a presentation, then you could have just had a TV.
Right. Or like
You know?
write on the presentation and then like erase it.
So I'm like,
Leave
I'm
no
like-
marks.
So I feel like we have room for improvement.
Yeah, we do.
And that is building human capacity. And so it is focusing again on the person, the person standing in front of the classroom in this case scenario, right? But I think it provided a lot of us an opportunity to think more deeply about topics that we might not have had in the past, or unless we were pushed into this, and to expect of presenters to know about everything
Right.
is unrealistic by all means. And we had, Mauro Shark and Samir and Sister Carolina not too long ago. And we talked about this, and Beach as well last week. And we talked about this, right? That the expectation that they know about everything is impossible. So by encouraging, community involvement, be it through, guest hosts like in Face of Future, or be it through like sending in questions, you allow room for people who are in these niche communities who do know about a topic more specifically to be able to ask those questions and be a little bit more critical and So Giulia, I want to ask, because I feel like we all live in bubbles. Of course we all do, but your age group bubble, I deal with people from all walks of life in all age groups, but I would like to think, or what I have noticed, that my bubble is very involved. Like there are people who are involved in communities, period, so they care, right? They're constantly aware of what's happening, etc. But I do talk to younger people, and I feel like they have lost trust in the institution of government almost, right? Or they feel a little bit apathetic towards it. But that is just my perspective from the younger people that I talk to or meet. How are you perceived in your bubble or in your peers as somebody being disinvolved this election cycle? I just want to know, like, are your peers as interested, or are you like a unicorn at this moment? Like, I want to know.
Oh, good question. No, I'd say the friends around me, they're interested. They like read up on all the articles, but I don't, and sometimes we have like debates about it. I also feel like, because I did study abroad, I do have friends in Holland, they can't vote back here. They're kind of listening in or watching in, but for them it almost feels a bit like a reality TV show. They're like, oh, look what's happening in Aruba again. This person said this thing.
Yes.
So like in that sense they're a bit out of touch, because again they can't vote, right? Because they live in Holland. So dat is een beetje jammer. But I don't know if I'd consider myself a unicorn per se. I mean, at work maybe a bit more. I guess at work, I don't know if it's normal to talk about politics, or you're afraid things can get heated, or people have different differences of opinion. But to go back to your initial question of losing faith in the government, I think for me personally, I lived in that bubble and I was apathetic because I feel like it's same old, same old. It's either AVP or it's going to be MAP, and like you said, saying your vote counts. I think as a younger generation, I see that I'm like, does it count? Am I going to vote for a smaller party and then have them not become majority and not have voting power? So I think in that regard, I was a bit skeptical of it's not going to make a difference because Aruba is very stuck in certain old ways, and like you said, through generations, my family for generations has voted for yellow or green. And I'm hoping that this generation now is opening up their eyes. I feel like we are a more critical generation, and we see this and we go, wait a second, you guys have been doing the same thing, and maybe nothing has changed, or not to the extent that we'd like it to. And also, I think we'd also like to see a representation of ourselves. So we want to see younger politicians because we know they have our best interests at heart, because it's their future as well. Whereas someone who's maybe hitting 60 might think about, ipensyonadan, which I'm not to say that's not important. But that's
I know this was such a very interesting thing that you say, but continue. I do want to go back to it.
Latch onto it. No, but that's it. So there's so many different aspects that are important, and I think the moral of the story is whoever you are and whatever you think is important, that's what you have to vote for. You have to vote for the political party that is specifically advocating for something you think is important.
But do you know already who you're going to vote for?
I think so.
Okay, because me, I find it so difficult.
I'm struggling too.
Some people that I can relate with, but still there's other things like.
Do you want to give an example?
No. I'm like, no, she doesn't.
That's fair. I'm the same. I'm still having doubts. It's not like I've sure in my mind. I think the other thing as well, I'm a little bit apathetic maybe to the world of politics because, they answer so politically correct. They're such good talkers and they can convince you of anything. And so the question really is, are they going to be able to implement it? Do they have a step-by-step plan of how they're going to get that done? And so I really focus on that. Who concretely in their plan de partido showed me hey, it's not just a beautiful vision that I have, but this is step-by-step how I think we're going to do this. So, yeah.
So I do want to go back to the thing that you mentioned, right? I do not, because I have been listening, and I work for a government, and everybody who listens to Suzuki knows this by now, so everything's fine. But so you tend to be in that bubble, and especially in whatever ministry you kind of work in, you are very aware of what's happening and what's going on. And I have been what would be the word to explain, a little disappointed maybe, but disappointed is not to the full extent of how I'm feeling, but as what I would consider myself a relatively young person,
you are.
Thank you. I feel like I did not feel issues that touch me were part of the buzz this election cycle, right? And by all means, the issues that concern me should not be part of the buzz because they are not buzz. But because it is a short election cycle, because it is happening in very busy seasons, right? It's the end of the year. There's so much going on. I am having a really hard time because I am hearing indeed a lot about, for example, adulto ng mayor, and I'm not saying that this is not a group that requires attention. They do. And they always will require that attention. So it's not something that should be picked up because it's election cycle is just part of life. We're all gonna get old, and that should be figured out. Let's put it that way. But with such a big group of young people coming in, I don't think enough, coming in as new voters, I don't think that enough attention was given into young people. And by young people, I don't mean 18 to 25 or whatever, but people who are gonna start their career, and people who are gonna start maybe a family, and maybe want to get a house and all that stuff. These are issues that are really bothering a lot of people, like a huge group of people. So I feel like I did not identify. So anytime that I would hear like these like the talk about adulto mayor, yes, I think it's important, but I feel like it was redundant at some point. I mean, we all agree that their care should be better, and y'all know how to do it. So by all means, please do it.
Right.
And we all agree that they need more time to do fun stuff, yes, and maybe more money to live or whatever, sure. But what are we gonna do with the people who still need to live a very long time and create a life?
But also who have to support these pensionang, that's our generation has to take care for the people that are going into retirement.
Not just pension, but also like socio and like emotionally as well, right?
Sure.
Like if I am not in a good like headspace or mental health, or if I'm not happy with my life, I'm probably not gonna have the energy or attention towards the elder either, including my parents. Like
like me, I think why do they find this a priority item?
I have a theory. I think it's because obviously the different generations, the biggest generation by far is the baby boomer generation.
Yes,
and
like
they
voting.
are nearing retirement. And so there's a big influx of young voters and new voters, but
they
they're
are
not
still
the biggest group.
Exactly. That is where I want to
you're
go.
going to target the people that have the biggest influence
market,
and probably the biggest chance of going out to vote. Because even though we have a bigger group of young voters, what are the odds that they maybe care enough to go out and vote, which is why we are urging, and that's why shows like Face the Future exist, to make you more interested. But the baby boomer, they're loyal. They're going to keep going out and voting. Like,
yes, and they have shown to be loyalist voters,
for sure.
right? And I understand that, but I think we are underestimating the power of like millennials as well, who have shown to swing and who have in voting, by all means. I just want to make that very clear. I just want to make that very clear.
Oh, I was thinking about something else. Never mind.
Yes. Anyways, no room for interpretation here. I was referring to voting. But so if we do not talk about these things that are directly impacting their lives and then might impact their lives, like if you put these groups together, they are just as strong or just as large, right? So I was a little surprised, but also I think we underestimate baby boomers' interest in younger people. A lot of them are grandparents, so they are also realizing that they are working full-time and their children are working full-time, so their grandchildren maybe might be spending a bunch of alone time. They too are concerned about the issues. They are concerned that their grandchildren do not have extracurricular activities, or that they might not get the same things that they got, right? A house and all that stuff. So I think that yes, although it might sound like a good strategy to tackle them, I think that it was also a missed opportunity to touch their emotional side on the fact that what are you leaving behind for your kids and stuff like that. So I was a little again, I can't find like the right word, but we're gonna go with disappointed that that also might mean that a lot of young people did not feel identified and might just not choose to vote because things were not talked about that interested them enough to make the effort and go out and vote, right?
And I think I have like the opposite perspective.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like, or maybe it's because I was surrounded during this season with a lot of young voters, and the questions and topics we spoke about were things that were targeting us. So maybe that's why I have the opposite perspective. But for my feeling is they spoke a lot about things that mattered for me, like the housing and housing market. For sure, they spoke a lot about young entrepreneurs.
Well, they sort of spoke about the housing market, but I'm still not convinced that there seems to be any form of
I agree with that.
real plan. I feel like
Exactly.
they ended up talking about it because people pushed them into it. I don't think it was like a high priority agenda point when this election cycle started.
I don't feel like either they constructively explained what they're going to do with Dip
No.
and the whole situation, that everything's stuck and under investigation.
Yeah,
and
true. I didn't, yeah.
I understand that they want to like root out corruption in that regard, but it's clearly not a priority, or else it would have been done already, and it would have been finished, and we would have had more access to housing. And I see like
And not as many Airbnbs uncontrolled and all that stuff. I
That's
mean,
why, like,
it's been happening.
My questions on Face the Future were more focused about like all the hotels that were being built and what are we going to do, because it's not just that we have more hotels and more tourists, it's the entire like structure, socioeconomic structure of Aruba is being impacted, because you have to bring all these people from abroad, because we don't have enough people on Aruba to work. They all have to find a house, they all need to get paid, they're all going to go to school. If they're families, these kids have to go to school, and I feel like school's already at like max capacity as is. These teachers are overwhelmed. They have 26 to 30 kids in a class. Like,
they'll get sick a day and
you
might
can't-
have to go to the doctor, right? All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
It impacts SVB. It impacts like
As it fade,
as a
the
thing.
other one, the other one.
So like it's not just tourism, it's every other aspect of Aruba. And I think people need to realize, also again with politics, there's politics in everything. So even if you think I'm not political, I'm not involved in it, like that's
It touches you.
It does.
It touches
in one
you.
way or another it does. Or someone you love.
Exactly. And that is, that is a very interesting thing that you mentioned, right? And that is where I think that these politically correct answers and like talking in very big terms and stuff, where I think that you two and Face the Future, because some people on there also behave like, on that same political correct level, but the fact that you were able to have a conversation, these are people, and I have questions, and I am not interested in a politically correct answer. Like, I genuinely want to understand. But things that you talk to people, like, I used to not be bothered in the past by tourists, for example, and now I am.
Girl.
and I feel guilty
Like,
about it. I feel
no.
guilty about it because I'm like I like being a tourist, like when I go on
in other
vacation.
countries, yeah.
Yes, like I like being a tourist, so it's not their fault. Like they just found, I'm
It's just
happy
too
they
much.
chose Aruba as a destination.
I agree.
But I am bothered. Like, anytime I'm driving and I'm driving behind a V car, I get annoyed.
And they're slow. They don't know how to use the roundabout. They're like switching lanes on the
Or if they,
bend.
like, anytime that I drive past, Royal Plaza and stuff, there's like a bunch of like cross paths.
They're just crossing over the road, like.
And I'm like,
however.
you can't jaywalk in the U.S. either. You know?
Well, I
You
think,
can't.
I think that's the thing. I think our culture as well, we're just very passive. Like, we
Yes.
just kind of take things as they are, which
Yes.
is why our dynamic with politicians is the way, that we just accept, like, they're kind of
Yes.
untouchable. They're celebrities in a way, right, in our community.
Yeah, no, they are,
But
yes.
like, I think with tourists, because I work in retail and we have stores in the hotels, I think the biggest thing I see with a lot of these tourists that come in is like, I don't know if I should say it on air, but it is like a slight sense of entitlement where they're like coming in and like, well, I'm paying big dollars to be here. I'm paying a
And
lot
they
of money
are.
on this hotel, and they
And they
are.
are.
So they obviously expect a certain like level of service, and
Yes.
that should be given, because
Yes.
I feel like Aruba is catered to customer service.
Yes.
But at the same time, I feel like our island isn't run to serve tourists. We have to serve ourselves first, and I think
Exactly.
that's where we lost faith in politicians, because we're like, okay, you guys care about making more money for Aruba or for the government, and we're not seeing this
Or
trickle
for
down.
these big companies, because by all
Yeah.
means, anytime that we talk about big money that is made by tourism, most of it goes away. So I'm like,
True.
I do not want to see these numbers. Like,
Right.
it annoys me every single time I read it. But now you see it back, right? Because if our everyday life is becoming more and more hard and more complicated, this main thing that is, contributing to our lifestyle, as a high-income country or whatever, is not gonna work anymore. People do not want to work in Horeca anymore. People are not as nice to tourists as they used to be, right?
No.
And so I think that, then the conversation tends to go into like, oh, we need to talk more about tourism. No, we need to talk more about our people.
yeah.
Right.
About why our people are
they
so
frustrated?
stressed. Yes, why they're so frustrated, why their lives are becoming so complicated and hard that they do not have the energy to tolerate
Right.
Yeah,
tourism.
literally. Like, for me, like, yesterday I was talking to a friend, And I was like, I think we have to create like a sabotaging plan or something to force the government to create like an economical
Activism.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't feel like it's not like I don't want tourists to come on the island, but it's too much. You can't go anywhere on the island and just chill at peace. Like there's always like a tourist around, like doing their thing, and it's nice. Like I love the tourists, but I mean like everything in life is balanced. So I wish we can like create
And we do not.
balance
We
these coming
currently
4
do
years.
not
We're out
have
of
the
balance.
No, we don't. It's too
And
much.
we can feel that, I think.
Yes.
I think it's just also like peace
too
of
much.
mind. If you're off of work and you've been working in hospitality for 6 days out of the week,
6 days.
you want to be able to go to a beach and just
And relax,
chill.
just be alone. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And that is-
Yeah, you can.
That is a very interesting perspective, because I think that if all the other variables would change and we leave tourism as it is now, it wouldn't even bother us that much. But because we have so many irritations constantly, because we are tired, because we have to work, 6 days a week, because we have to make it work with our roads and figure out, whatever grid situations that are not working out because there is too much going on and we did not calculate capacity good enough or whatever. By the time that I have that one day off and I want to do something, then I'm gonna be irritated. But if I had more work-life balance and I had, a truly high quality of life, then maybe I wouldn't be as bothered. That's just how irritability works and how being tired works and how being, constantly on like fight or flight works. And it so happens to be that a lot of people in Aruba are working 2 jobs, are, barely having a couple of hours off to do something that's nice. And then, so I just want to, just say that again, I think it has very little to do with the actual tourism issue.
Yes.
And so much to do with all of our other, socioeconomic
Yes,
issues.
that's a very good way that you said it. Yes, I agree.
Agreed.
So I'm gonna look at the questions because we're
Yes,
having
please do.
conversations,
Yeah.
and
We're
I
having
love
a
a good
yap
conversation.
fest.
That is the whole point of having Sincerely Carolina, for me to have good conversations.
Just extend it by another hour.
I feel like if I didn't have a time slot, and I have people who I cannot talk to for 2 hours by all means, right? I'm like doing an episode and I'm like, we can be done earlier. But then I'll have people that I really like the conversation and I get upset. Then we have to end it. And I'm like, if this was real life,
Just invite us
again.
Yeah.
But like after you answer the question, I am curious about you guys, like
Oh.
because we are talking about creating a new economical pillar, tourism being like a problem, it's disturbing us, blah blah. So I'm curious, like, what do you girls think would be or could be the next economical pillar?
I'm gonna let Carolina answer this.
No, I think that considering Aruba's infrastructure, we cannot do something that would require, a lot of physical infrastructure. So I do think that we should focus on creating more opportunities for people to, I don't want to say like work from home and then the money goes elsewhere, because if you encourage people from like, I don't know, the US and the Netherlands to come work here, but they're making money in the US and the Netherlands, then it's not the
Right.
purpose. But focus on like genuinely creating, the space for a knowledge economy, right? There's so much that you can do online, work-wise, and where people can truly live here and, have their life here, so their money stays here rather than, just being here for a couple months and peace out by. And I think a lot of it has to do with creating the opportunities for us to be able to do e-commerce, right, in a way that is accessible and easy, but also the other infrastructure required to do that, right, like accessible high-speed internet at all places, places where people can, work. So like workspaces that are truly inviting and that are truly, I haven't made use of them, so I don't know if the ones that we have are inviting. I'm not saying that they are not, but I see that in places that encourage this type of business do that. But I do not think that, we have the infrastructure to create something that would require land or like big buildings, and we do not have space.
And what do you think about
so no
big-
theme parks no theme parks. No theme parks.
I know.
So what do you think, because like the hype right now as well is like a second economical pillar could be in the agriculture industry. What do you girls think of that?
I think they must have researched it, and it makes sense maybe with the population that we have and their strengths and the skill set. I think if you want to tackle like the younger generation coming back to Aruba and that brain drain that gets thrown around all the time, like, yeah, we go abroad to go get a higher education, and so you want us to make good use of this. We're not going to come back and just do whatever job. Like, we studied for something specific, and also that comes with a certain paycheck. That comes with a certain income. Like, I feel like we go abroad, we put ourselves into debt because we want to come back home and we want to be able to contribute in one way or another. And I think when you talk about that knowledge economy, I think it is tricky because I would want to be able to try and find a way to encourage companies from abroad to come and be on Aruba, but I would want it to impact and increase the economy on Aruba. And so I'm afraid if we bring in like multinationals or something, that it's just going to be benefiting their home office or their home country in the US or Canada or Europe. And so, yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe encourage local entrepreneurship as well. I think that's something that could really be like invested in.
But I do want to answer the agriculture.
The agriculture one.
Yes.
Yes. So that one. So what do you girls think of the agriculture industry?
So my mom just finished the Agribusiness Academy.
You finished it?
My mom.
Oh, your mom. Oh,
Yes.
that's so nice.
The what?
The Agriculture Business
That's
Academy
so
course.
nice.
Is that here?
Yeah.
Oh,
So my mom
With
is
credits, right? With credits or something? With credits.
Yes, my mom is almost 70. She is a sociologist from background. That is her background.
Cool.
And she just absolutely loves gardening. And she did go into this as a gardening enthusiast with a friend of mine. And they just went into it to just like have fun kind of thing.
Yeah.
And by all means, they got out of it as it was very interesting to learn about all that stuff. But I went to their final presentations because I had to, help my mom with her presentation. And so I listened to all the other presentations as well, or most of them really. And I agree with Giulia in the sense that I think that it can really contribute to some of the issues that we have in the sense of like, so my mom's plan, the way she presented it, is like she's gonna do like a subsistence garden. So basically to provide her family and friends and neighbors, like that is how she put it, with fresh veggies and herbs. But not as a business because it's hard labor. And so I think that we should encourage more subsistence gardening so that we don't have to import as much and so that we can have, fresh homegrown foods in Aruba, because when you do the math, it is cheaper to grow it here than to constantly bring it. So I agree with that, yes. But to create another business that has mostly low-income jobs, no. Like, I do not want to push it because we do not need more of that. We have a whole Horeca business that already does that.
And you might even argue like, okay, agriculture is all nice and well, but we don't get paid in tips. Like we don't interact with tourists where we get paid more than like minimum wage perhaps. So I feel like agriculture could be a cool opportunity to incorporate technology, because Aruba does have quite infertile ground, so that's one of the biggest issues why you don't have major farmlands and things like that. But like the Alta Vista winery, for instance, for me it was very eye-opening to be like, okay, wow, against all odds they were able to grow these grapevines and create actual wine. So I feel like, and there are other small like entrepreneurs and companies like Titupan and the woman who does the mushrooms, she grows them herself. I think those are super cool, and I do agree Aruba needs to become more self-sufficient.
Yes, but I do not think that we should make it a pillar and to like, because again, we need to really push to get away from creating pillars that are mostly low-income jobs or minimum wage jobs.
But that's the thing, no? Because like a lot of people think that working in agriculture means that you are like low-skilled or low-paying, or what it is.
But it is low-paying.
Okay, low-paying. But like, for example, in the agri-tech industry, like you need to have, it is higher paying. So I don't know, I can't really say a lot of the agriculture industry on Aruba because I haven't experienced it on hands, but what I can see from reading of the industry online, you have a lot of high-skilled people working within the agri-tech industry as well as being high paying. And for me, I do think that the agriculture industry can be a second economic pillar of Aruba, and the reason being is because, like in the 1800s, Aruba's the main economical pillar was by means of outsourcing aloe and woods and those type of things. So I do see a potential of us having a fruitful agriculture industry. However, only if we not only, but mostly if we use technology as an enabler to produce faster produce. And then, of course, right now we can focus of it internally, so on Aruba itself, for us to buy produce and those type of things. But at a certain point, we can export these as well, because we cannot compete with Colombia, because Colombia's prices are much lower. But we can compete with, for example,
the US,
the
maybe.
US, so more developed countries. So I do think that agriculture industry is a huge potential for Aruba, and especially if we embed technology within it, and then you can create high skilled jobs as well, and higher paying jobs as well. I think I don't believe that it's only low. In every industry there's low paying jobs and high paying jobs.
Do you
so
know
I think for
which political party like really focused on that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You what? You don't know?
Yes, I
Yeah,
do.
we do.
Oh,
we
you do? Oh.
We do. But we're not gonna get into it.
Oh, okay.
But and I am open by all means, right?
Yeah.
But the numbers I have seen so far do
Same.
not
Yeah,
substantiate that. And I do know some of the farms, and my mom is like one of the microgreen growers in Aruba. Like she does that, and she works, with a company. And if I see like their well, I hope like they don't get annoyed. But anyways, like if I look at it, like who works with the organization and stuff like that, I love what they're doing, yes, but they do not have, like it's like 2-3 people making good money, and then the rest is like minimum wage.
Yeah. No, I
understand.
But even like in the tech industry, there's like a bunch of people making like a lot of money, and then like in the technology space, like you have like massive smart people, but they're on the income bracket. You have lower paying people as well. Like you need testers, and testers also work in the tech industry, but they're not very high paying. Like, of course, if you compare it with like people working in the agriculture industry and you compare the salary, maybe it's lower. But I feel like in every industry there's high paying and low paying. So for me, I'm trying to but that's one important thing that you mentioned is the data. You've seen the data. I haven't seen the data.
I've seen some, and by all means, I don't think it is like the truth or the ultimate truth, but the ones I have seen, and there's some stuff that is accessible online too, so I was able to look at some stuff, and I think that indeed it might be a good thing again for subsistence reasons, so we are not dependent on like the outside, and I think some people might indeed benefit, but I personally wouldn't want to push for an industry where I think, or for where I think we're a group of very few people are gonna truly benefit from it, and again, like the large masses are still stuck with having to work 2 jobs. And
I mean, I guess it also depends on what you're going to focus on. Are you going to focus that agriculture can bring you higher paying jobs, or are you going to focus on that agriculture could lower
Reduce
cost of food
living.
and produce, and ultimately that's sustenance that we need. And like I feel like going to fast food is cheaper than buying groceries in a supermarket. Like that's messed up.
It is messed up.
So I feel like in that regard, if we could produce the quantity that we need to give to our community, then it would be worth it. But you have all of these micro companies now, so they would maybe need more funding to be able to expand, like hydroponics and stuff. I remember they started during COVID, and we would always get lettuce from that. That's just super cool.
I think my preferred is what you mentioned as well, is like creating a knowledge economy and then exporting your services. That's
because a lot of Julia said, a lot of people are studying like very niche things compared to my age group, and I mean I think that it's pretty cool, Lucienne. Like I went into very traditional fields by all means, right? But it doesn't mean that my knowledge, in an ideal world, and I don't want to say that I don't like my job, I do, but I would also like to be able to export my knowledge, right? To be able to consult on health services abroad, and to be able to, I could do that. Like I have the skills to do that, do research and stuff like that, but I do not have a way of truly doing it in a way that is like sustainable.
To jump in, I do feel like it depends, because like a country has to be known for a specific specialty to be able to export their knowledge abroad. So like I know that Holland, for instance, they're one of the leading countries when it comes to like aqua infrastructure, and so all of the companies that build bridges over water or tunnels under, like they know that because Holland is literally underwater.
Yeah.
So that's their specialty. They outsource that kind of knowledge, and so I think Aruba first needs to pinpoint what is our specialty.
Technology.
Because we have
I hope we can create
agriculture. No, but I mean, essentially, it's hospitality, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
how can we outsource?
Yes.
Hey, that's actually very small.
Yes, that is a very good way of putting it, and I think that we should bank.
Julia.
I think that we should indeed bank on that knowledge that we have.
Yeah.
But I think that we should also make use of the fact that we are living in a globalized world, so you can market yourself as whatever, right?
See,
and you
I
can,
agree.
and you can, get on the map if you just like know the right people, and if the right people share your stuff, basically, right? So I think that we should not be afraid to wait and see what our niche thing is gonna be. But I do think there is an opportunity to outsource our hospitality knowledge, for example,
Absolutely.
right? And not in the sense of like, go work in a new hotel again or whatever, but outsource how hospitality can be introduced in other industries, for example.
Even in the Netherlands, because
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think they could really export some hospitality
They could
courses.
use some
Exactly.
customer service.
Yes,
Exactly.
the Netherlands.
exactly.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
more.
Yes. If you're listening and you're from the Netherlands, we highly encourage you to reach out to Ruben and ask them how to provide customer service. Because y'all bad at it.
Well, I think the culture is just so different, right? I
It
think we're
is.
very
It
warm
is,
and
it is.
open. We're
It
willing
is.
to talk to anyone. I think in Holland, I lived there for 4 years, and so
Yeah.
ze zijn iets meer afgesloten. A lot of people experience heimwee. Look at me throwing in some Dutch words. They get homesick from Aruba because they enter into a study where they're surrounded by Dutch people that don't open themselves up to become friends with you, or they
Yeah.
have their own group of friends, and so that was like one of the biggest issue amongst my group of friends of like, okay, I have you guys, my Aruban group of friends, but I want to be able to reach out and
mingle.
expand and make other friends, and it was just making that very hard. So my study was in English, so I was
had
surrounded
more
by a bunch of
international-
international students, so they
Yeah.
already had a little bit more of an open mindset, so that was, I thought, amazing.
Yeah.
But I think that's why maybe customer service is just not, they don't need to focus on it, I guess,
No.
because they're not really service oriented.
No. As the daughter of a Dutch man who
Oh.
swears he will never go back because of this.
Yeah.
My parents have lived in many countries, and he, like, anytime my dad goes to the Netherlands to like visit my sisters or whatever, he's like, oh my god, I hate this place. Like, I know why I'm not here. Like, but it's a lot of that. But anyways,
Back to
I just
Aruba.
I just wanna go over like some quick questions before we have to go, because we really have to go in a little bit.
Shoot.
Time flies. Yes.
Hello.
Okay, so I think this is a good question because we answered a lot of it while we were talking. So it's, what advice would you give to someone who is still undecided in these final days? Lucienne.
I think I myself need that advice because I have no idea yet who I'm going to vote for. So I don't know.
Same.
But I think what Giulia said, try to find a politician that matches with your values, with your beliefs in life. And no one is perfect, so maybe we can take like the 80-20 rule when we select for a politician to vote for. I think maybe that's the advice for myself and for the viewers. So search for someone that identifies with my values and beliefs, and implement the 80-20 rule. No one is perfect, so.
Yeah. I think it's different. It's interesting because, like in Holland, you pick a party that you believe in and the party's values. But I think Aruba is more a people, like a specific politician-based thing. So I think in that regard, you do have to go more specific into the person you want to vote for, but just be very mindful of who else is in that political party that you might not want to have power.
Yes.
So maybe you want to vote for a number 2, but if you don't like the number 1 on the party, if they get the majority, they're going to become prime minister or have a position in parliament. So I think those are things to just be very mindful of. I think personally, as a young voter, it is very overwhelming. Like, what news sources do you look to? That was one of my struggles in the beginning. beginning, like who do I trust? Because certain news outlets are funded by certain political parties, so by default they are not unbiased.
Yep.
They can't be. So I think like shows like Face the Future, podcasts like Unfiltered in Paradise, those are, or even radio shows like this, I think they're super important to get a more neutral view, and from our point of view as well, questions that wanted to be asked, and see how they respond, how they answer the questions, if they answer the questions, and that tells you a lot. Even the debates, Vota pa King, I thought was super informative as well. So I think go into those. If there's a certain party or politician that you're interested in, try to look up their plan de partido. They should all have them available. If they don't, red flag.
Yes,
But they should all be online, and really focus on, again, the topic that you think will heavily impact your life. And by doing that, you see, okay, do they actually have a plan, or is this just like a fluffy vision that they want to try and sell you on? And what are they out there campaigning? Because again, they can have it in their plan de partido, but if it's 88 pages and this is on like page 60, I'm just saying something, for instance, but they're going out and not campaigning and not even mentioning it, it shows you that it's not a priority for them either. So I think that those are like all things to keep in mind. And me personally, I think as a young generational voter, I look back at our track record and we've seen the same parties be in power. I would like some new faces, some fresh faces, just to see how they would do things. I know people are like, they've never had the experience. Yeah, but you have to give them the opportunity to be able to prove themselves. That's like when you're applying for jobs. They expect you to have all this experience, and I'm like, yeah, but I have to enter the job market somehow. So I think, I talked a lot, but
No, you're fine.
Those are all these different things that I would take into account. So I would be ready to switch things up with newer parties and see how they do. I do think they have a possibility of gaining a majority, but again, honestly, listening to all the beef that these different politicians have with each other, like they have to put their egos aside and be able to work together for the better of Aruba. Because if they can't do that, we're never going to move forward. Punto.
Ladies. Yeah. Thank you so much. Like, I'm not gonna ask any more questions, but I feel like this summed it up pretty well. Thank you so much for joining me this morning and having this conversation with me. I really appreciate it, and I really also appreciate, you both putting yourself out there to a certain extent, right? I mean, you decided to go on a show and put yourself out there with whatever that comes with. People can be nasty if they want to be, so it is always a risk that you take the moment that you choose to put your face out there. So I appreciate you doing that for yourselves, but also how that contributes to like the rest of us, also being able to have this content to consume that will help us, hopefully, with our decision process. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. This was fun.
Yes.
I do this again.
Yay. All right. Okay, so an hour went by too fast. I am a little sad about that because this was a really nice conversation. Mida, spero ko basahin sa akin interesante. Nós abisa no começamento que nós vai code switch a lot e nós a própria maioria na inglês. Se botin Gen Z dembo bubble ku nós ainda para quem vai votar of having some hard time. Monday episode aqui hopefully é por sentir um pouquinho mais tranquilo. Ku tem hobicos going on ding nos cabeça ding cabeça de outro Gen Z maneira Giulia, pero sabe se botin younger millennials or older millennials, by all means, se botin hindi ko bata sinti ting hopi pergunta dentro da cabeça lagi essa ko it's okay pating hopi pergunta dentro da cabeça ainda menos com simang prome ko Eleccion pero me espero ko outro simang nos tur por hasi uma decisão consciente me quer back na local ko bicha bisa simang passa ko é direito e não obrigação tá algo ko me come to terms me digo bisa election cycle aqui pa compreender que é o direito também para decidir se você bisa me moralmente não por carga uma decisão que me não está stand fully behind. So by all means, se aceita uma que botar, exercise your right not to vote if you have to. Pero me quer highly encourage you to, make use of that right. Make sure bo informação está em ordem. Make sure bo tem bo ID, by wak electoral ratsu, social media, please. Me tá esperando me nota wak pergunta. nang kuta findable riba ng social media riba vragen aanbod mani jawab sa noche pero please so nang ta informa anto be nice and kind si monkey porting un feeling un tiki intense na trabaho riba kaya rondi hende. Be nice, make better choices. No by den diskusyon si bono master, si ito ba itong konversasyon interesante, go for it. Isi ba tawa ka tabayando south, mane, get out, anto it's not worth it. Please, echt, Mita espero kung nasa ting any crazy news going on this week. Anyways, take care. Have a good Saturday. Be nice, be kind, make better choices. See you again next week. Mita think about it. Sobra minus mita baita sina anxious dia 6 kung mino por handle being just abra, but I'll let you know. I'll let y'all know. Bye. Hi, I'm Carolina, and I am the host of Sincerely Carolina, a series of educational conversations about current social issues with local and international experts. Make sure you tune in every Saturday on Cool FM from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Bye!